And here we see a typical voter waiting for the party to change, whilst this group of voters are more than happily munching down on the shit that Keir Starmer serves them up. Keir Starmer being, of course, merely an actor designed to take the sheep from here to here. It's interesting when you look at these lines, how parallel they are. When you can see them like in the horizon, sort of going at a perpendicular. When you see them approaching you, like this lot here, let me zoom back, this lot here, well, they seem like they're rising, a little bit like that hot air balloon they shoot up every few months from Cape Canaveral, SpaceX, Elon's mask, and nasal. Anyway, it's a nice observation. I mean, people will say, "Oh, well, they're not going far enough for you to see any curvature, or they're kind of in a circle parallel with each other." Which, you know, obviously you can draw circles with a smaller radius, and they would be equidistant. But obviously, for me, parallel and horizontal, I mean, things can be parallel without being horizontal, of course. But they're not going to bend. Well, that's my view on it anyway. Let's keep going, see what comes up. The hands are cold, so I don't really want to hold the phone too long. I mean, have my hand out in my pocket. It is quite a pretty scene. But yeah, sheep are used as an analogy for us voters, or for people, you know, for the populace at large, and every flock is pointing at the other and going, "You're a sheep." So it is a little ironic, because we're all kind of herding together around our shared interests. And sheep are obviously very independent in a way that they cannot help each other. You know, if a sheep gets stuck, the mother can't, look in these thorns, the mother can't extricate her child. Oh dear, sheep. It's this side of the fence. Hey dude, you're in trouble here, huh? Okay, just hold the camera for me. I've got a number,
01777. And we're free.
Right. Good, so we'll take it up to the other field, I think.
Yep.
And we'll eventually just abandon her. It's a sad state of affairs, really. So in this case, you know, husbandry is is a good idea. To be able to care for these guys such that they get what they need and can thrive. One could say, well, if you just left it to nature, there'd be fewer of them. And yeah, that'd be true. But wow, the wool, the meat, the energy basically that they harvest on your behalf. The little hoovers, they're hoovering up all the light energy that is absorbed by grass from the ether in the ground. The electricity, the charge. And they'll store it for you. I mean, care for them. I would help them where I could, but I think the point is that we're meant to be the farmers and not the sheep. However, in a world that is the world that has been curated is such that we are, for the large part, sheep-like. And there are times when we need help, legitimately need help, I can imagine times when, you might have ne'er-do-wells at your door and it's like, who do you call? And this is a good time for sun gazing, by the way, and particularly through the trees if you're new at it. Yeah, the ne'er-do-wells are knocking in your door. You could get to vigilanteism, if you have sufficient pals around and so on. You could get there. But you see in the in certain neighborhoods how you'll get this gang versus that street gang, and that generally doesn't end well. Drive-bys and blah blah blah. It does get out of hand. So I mean, even in the legitimate three-letter agency type vigilanteism, it can do real good, but it can also do real harm. And so no, it's not perfect. And I was listening to Dr. Bass Ackwards, for an hour this morning, to be honest, and it's the longest I've listened to him, and a very interesting stream of thoughts. We've spoken about anarchy over the years and self-rule rather than mob rule, but that is great. I mean, and it's a wonderful ideal, one that I would aspire to be a part of. But it really does, it does demand personal accountability and self clarification, actualization, realization, or embedding and imbuing the tenets of what it is to be a spark of the divine. We have been generations in some post-apocalyptic Hunger Games. What they portray, or what is portrayed by the Hollywood, is what's that Mel Gibson Thunderdome with the singer Tina Turner. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. Is that the same thing? That was Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Oh, Hollywood comes up again. And who's Frank? I don't know. Sounds like a guy who got involved in the setting up of a little state in the Middle East. That seems to be so hot, shall we say. And so are we in a post-apocalyptic kind of prison system in which there is a survival of the fittest Darwinian ethos, which has created in the beings within the system, that kind of fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, which is why avarice, greed, all these things, they end up being our jailer. So this gate hook is sometimes a little difficult. Come on, girl. Come on. Yeah, so oh, shot. That's a pheasant. Come on, girl. It's New Year, right? It's actually 31st of December today. My Australian friends will be, only hours away from, New Year's Eve. New Year's Day morning. Blah blah blah. 1st of Jan, which I think is a scam. Jan isn't that Janus or some Caesarian kind of character like Julius, July, Junus, Augustus, don't forget them. Bass reminded me of the Septo, Octo, Novo, Deco. So here we are, talking about it again. Should we sun gaze? Yeah, I haven't made a video for a while. Let's say we've been moving through, and we continue to move through some interesting energy. And I've felt impelled to take it easy. Go low and slow, Yeah, I'm far from convinced that mankind would be, good if you just took the shackles off. With the best will in the world, we are taking ourselves, knowing what we know. Knowing what we know. We are still creatures of avarice, greed, lust. These things they've been tweaked. They are, maybe it's just the natural part of this game is for us to have these foibles that we need to develop or experience, grow from. So, not to be judgmental of it. Let's put the sun behind the fur, shall we? That'll be quite picturesque. Yeah, I can do that. Basically bending the sun to my will. Yeah, so it is a journey of self-improvement in a way. Oh, don't roll in the poo. dogs like rolling in sheep poo, and then they reek. '26 is, I'm sure, going to be another fascinating year. Things could be dragging slowly through the processes of conflict and price rises and controls on movement, limitations on speech. This is all moving along at a fairly rapid pace. So, when the drum beat starts, the tempo rises, then one can surely expect a crescendo. No major predictions as we move into 2026. I have thought about, how the year could be very challenging in ways that we don't yet realize. So there's some tricks up the Thunderdome sleeve. Thunderdome. Didn't mean for that to be a flat Earth reference, but kind of is, right? This is a few seriously old trees, but I don't think they're older than this prison. I think this prison is a few hundred years, 300, 400, 500 years old, and these trees are younger than that. So who planted them? When maybe because this house that I'm staying at is a sort of 1800s house, so it would make sense that these were planted then. Beautiful trees. Beautiful. I think every man and woman raising a family should have, every man should have land like this. Why not? We live in a very limited hangout prison. I hope that doesn't sound gloomy, because as I often say, I think the prison is a little Shawshank Redemption test for this lifetime. Whatever the Thunderdome controllers have planned, it's ultimately only here in this material, I like to think. See the frost on the ground. It is literally 0 Celsius, so what's that, 32 Fahrenheit, 31 or 32. See this gigantic tree here? I don't know if you can see it yet. There's a rule, it's an EU rule, that's still, although the UK left the EU, some of the EU rules, many of them just stayed in place. And one of them was that these giants, when they fall from natural causes, must be left to rot in the ground, which is great for the ecology. I understand that, but there is so much value in the timber, firewood and construction, that you could strip the most useful parts of this and still leave lots of bits and pieces for the and there are there are timbers falling from the forest all the time. There's so much stuff on the ground. I really think that, again, it's a bit like put the animals ahead, or the the creatures ahead of the expression of creation. Us. I mean, yes, it's all expression of creation, but we are meant to be the husbands and wives. We are meant to be the caretakers, not the servants. And a place like this, it seems, in the 1800s, early 1800s, was gifted somehow to those who would serve the upper echelon, and in turn have the lower echelon serve them. A hierarchical system. And again, a bit like with the policing and governing thing, it is hard to say, well, if this guy here, let's say we all had 20 acres of land, and if this guy here is productive with his 20 acres and decides to get, buy a bit more from some of his mates and ends up wholesaling it and making more money than others, and then buying a bit more land and growing his farming capability and so on beyond that of his neighbor, whose children then come and work on the farm for the guy who becomes the land baron. You can see that naturally occurring. So as I'm not wanting to be too idealistic about this reality, because when we gather as 100 different people, you'll find all sorts of skill sets. This person's strong with that, and that person's good with this thing, and this person isn't particularly strong in some areas and is better suited to following a very concise script as to what it is that they do. And I meet people who are much happier, very happy in the role of servant, actually. I don't have, aspirations greater than perhaps having a bigger TV, or being able to have one holiday a year and buy Christmas gifts for the grandchildren. I'm sure they'd say, yes, I'll take a 50% pay increase any day. But in the main, they're satisfied with the status quo. There's a master, they are a servant. And I don't know whether we were always designed to come in assuming certain stati. However, we have. And once you're born into a caste, you're meant to kind of stay in it. I mean, obviously there's those who aspire to moving out of their caste. We see this in the Divergent series, this idea, and who would resent someone going, well, I come from a very difficult background, and I would like to correct that or address that in this lifetime. It doesn't have to be financial only. I've been collecting bits of wool. Because together, they come together, and it's really lovely smell and great for insulating my pockets. This one's got a hole in it, and it helps keep my hands warm, both of which are freezing now from holding the phone. Yeah, so I feel like what I just said is centered on a financial. Ooh, this is quite a clump. They really get stuck on, and that's very hazardous if there's a clump. That's nice. That's the idea that our attainment here is measured in dollars and pounds, and size of the property. I mean, it's unfortunate. I think if we all had this amount of land just to roam, then mankind would be far more comfortable with itself and less scrabbling. Like the sheep trying to get away from these rapacious meat eaters. Did you know that? These plants, they like to eat sheep. Oh, bollocks. This isn't going to work now. It's been dragged on the ground. This has got ice in it. No, I might have to. I don't want to plug this in and it's wet. Might have to end this video. We don't want to. We don't judge this experience based on material. I don't think. I do think that when you're in harmony and you're in a state of good balance, then wherever you are in the pecking order, you will, attain a good experience, even if it's not monetarily, liberating. Although perhaps there's more chance of that occurring if you meet life with joy and equanimity. I hope you and your family have a fabulous, healthy 2026, whatever may come in the days ahead. And we'll let's talk again. You're not too distant. Be well.